Welcome back to the Fostering Financial Victories podcast. I'm Eric, your host. I am joined today by Thomas Brush and Rob Coleman. So Rob is a wealth coach on our team. And Thomas, I'm excited, man, for you to join us. You've got an interesting story. You are way more YouTube famous than we'll ever be. So we're excited, man.
Maybe not.
So Rob, give a little background on Thomas, man.
Well, Thomas is a great friend and probably one of the most interesting business owners that we've now had on the podcast. Just really excited for him to kind of tell his story and how it's morphed. And he's really succeeded of providing really good content that the consumers want throughout the pandemic and shifting his business model and being able to adapt and being nimble. But he's got a really cool story, and we just want to highlight him, and hopefully some people can get some takeaways on just how to pivot in the small business space and adapt to opportunities they see and providing the content that people are asking for.
All right, so 2 young kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Small business owner.
Yes.
I've done a little bit of research on you. It seems like you put out a pretty extensive YouTube video almost daily. Is what it seems like.
Well, I live stream daily.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different. Like you do dedicated uploads. I do it like twice a month, a dedicated edited video.
So as a dad, how in the world do you keep your kids to be quiet while you're doing this?
Well, I'm thinking about renting a space now. I mean, I don't. Like, it's so funny because I'll be recording, and we were talking about this before we started this stream, is like authenticity is so important, especially to like Generation Z. Millennials care a lot about authenticity, I think, as well. And so hearing babies crying in the back of my videos adds that punch of authenticity. It's like, this guy is a dad, he makes video games, he does YouTube, and his kids are screaming in the background. So it's just that authenticity. So
cool.
Yeah.
So making video games, streaming content.
Yeah.
Tell us how in the world you got to this point.
Well, it's funny because having no real escape, but I'm the kind of guy who, I think freedom is the most important thing to me. I just want to be free and I want to do what I want to do. And so having no real way to quit my job, it felt like I was just so, I was stifled to a point where I had to figure out how to bring in some money so that I could quit my job and do what I wanted. So for me, it was always about sniffing out where the income was. And so I just, wherever there was an opportunity to make some money, to do what I wanted to do, which was make video games and do YouTube, I would pursue that and kind of obsess about that. And so whether it was making YouTube videos and getting sponsorships from those videos, selling video games, publisher agreements, investors, figuring out all that stuff, I don't think I would have been able to do it and figure out how to do it had I not wanted that freedom so badly.
Yeah.
You know?
That
so
push.
It's kind of like the necessity is the mother of invention. You just start figuring out ways to bring in income. Yeah.
So when did you make your first game that you were able to publish or sell or turn into income?
Yeah, so I was 18. I just turned 31, unfortunately, yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Birthdays aren't as exciting anymore, but
You just wait.
Yeah. So I just turned 31 yesterday, but I was 18 when I sold my first game. And by sell, I mean I sold the license to a publisher. And that publisher agreement kind of went south. And so I did get paid, though. I got paid. And so
At 18.
Yeah, at 18.
Yeah.
So it was like, above $10,000. I can't say the exact number just because of the contract, but it was like above $10,000. And at 18, you're like, I'm rich. Like, this is all I need for the rest of my life. But obviously, that dries up pretty quickly. So I got paid at 18 for my first game. It was like a 15-minute game called Coma. It was a very small, like, internet game. And I was amazed that I could make money off of it. And I thought that I was set. I thought, this is the plan. The plane has landed. I'm good to go. But once that money dries up, I went to Clemson, had to pay my bills with that. And then after that, it was like, wait a second, it's not as easy as that. It was kind of like I just kind of maybe got lucky a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I got married and got a regular job. And so that dream kind of fizzled out a little bit, But yeah, I was 18 with the first project.
So you were writing code for video games before you had your desk job that kind of pushed you into the next level.
Right,
so
exactly.
You already knew a little bit of background there. You did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I've been doing animation and video games and digital art since I was in middle school. And I went to a local school here in Greenville, Malden Middle, Malden High School. So I was doing that. I didn't have many friends. I was just doing digital stuff. You know, I would go home and make games and make animations, post them online. But that's kind of how it all got started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you have now been doing this full time.
Yeah.
For how long?
5-6 years, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how many games in that 5 or 6 year period have you created?
Yeah, so after I was 18, through Clemson and my desk job, I worked on one game, and that game was called Pinstripe. It was about a minister who goes to hell to find his daughter. Kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. It's kind of like that movie. It's very ethereal. He goes to hell to rescue his daughter, and that took it took 5 years to make.
Wow.
And I was doing that. What was I doing there? It was kind of just, it's all been a blur. But like, I would wake up early in the morning at like 5 a.m. And this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with that feeling of like, I gotta do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I would get up early in the morning. The only hours I had not working my desk job. So early in the morning, I would get up 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd sit in traffic. And then I'd go to work. And then I would work through lunch. I'd eat like a sandwich in my left hand and work with my right hand, make a game for that 1 hour of lunch break. And then I'd come home, and it wasn't every night because I was kind of whooped by the evenings, but a lot of evenings I would come home and work an additional hour on that game. So that game took 5 years. And then I sold it to a publisher. And then the next game took about 3 years or 2.5 years, sold that to Apple. And now I'm currently working on my third game. So it's like a couple small games and then some bigger ones, and those bigger ones took years.
Yeah.
You know.
So really started just making games.
Yeah.
And then you saw opportunity and these people wanting content to learn how to make games and do all this. So kind of tell everyone, what you started doing as you're making these games and creating content for people to learn from you.
Well, I read Tim Ferriss's book. I don't know if you guys know Tim Ferriss, but The 4 Hour Work Week, which that right there tells you the kind of guy this is, which is somebody who understands entrepreneurship and headlines and getting a click because, and he's great with digital content because the title of that book sells it, which is it possible to have a 4-hour work week? So I read that book, got really excited because it just gives you this whole other view of how to have freedom. Mm-hmm. And how to be an entrepreneur and how to seek out income and create systems to generate that income. So I realized that all of the hard work it was exhausting. Even going once I went full time, I did a Kickstarter campaign that raised $106,000, and I was able to go full time. Once I went full time, I was still just really exhausted because I was doing it all alone. I wasn't finding any help to help make my game, and this was my first commercial game, Pinstripe. And so I kind of realized slowly that even though these games were bringing in 6 figures a year, and we were making more than I had ever dreamed we could make financially, I realized that, and a friend had told me this, he said, what did he say? The quote is, it's not the gold rush you should be after, but you should be making the tools for the gold rush. That's where the real... if you want to build wealth, that's where the wealth is building the tools and the resources for making games. So half of my business model was I'm going to make games, and then the other half was I'm going to build resources to make those games, and I'm going to sell them to my audience. And so that's when I really started focusing. I was doing YouTube prior to that, but I really started focusing on YouTube because there are so many kids out there. And by kids, I mean like 15 to 30 years old.
So you're not a kid since you turned
I'm
31
not a kid
yesterday?
I'm not a kid anymore, even though I feel like it.
Yeah.
So there's people older than that can definitely make games as well. But there are just kids out there who are so hungry to make video games. And so I was like, there's nothing, there was a couple YouTube channels out there, but my YouTube channel, I started focusing primarily on encouraging these kids that they can do it, because I went through sort of the insecurity of like, I can't be a game developer. Like I can't be an artist or an entrepreneur. And most people, especially successful entrepreneurs, they're going to look back and they're going to go, yeah, I felt those exact same feelings. Like I felt insecure too. You don't become secure just randomly. You actually have to learn it and go through the fire. And so that's what I teach on my YouTube channel.
So the cycle of what you are doing now has evolved from now, instead of just strictly writing games and creating, it's throughout the process, basically documenting it and creating an income stream off the process.
Yeah, so
is that what I'm hearing?
It's kind of like a street art, performance art, like street performance art or whatever you call that. It's like if I was a painter and I went on the street and was painting, and then on the side I said, oh, by the way, if you want to learn how to do this, here's some tools. And people like Bob Ross. You guys like Bob Ross, the painter? Did you ever watch Bob Ross?
I've seen the videos.
He's not just making a TV show. He's selling all these other resources. I actually don't even know if that's true, but I bet you if the audience Googles it right now, they can find Bob Ross paintbrushes, Bob Ross everything. And that is why YouTube is so valuable. Instead of just trying to sell one thing, like a video game, you go, why am I not selling all the things? And just do YouTube. So what I do is I just stream about 2 to 3 hours a day.
Of you working?
Of me just making games. And it sounds like it's easy. Oh, maybe it doesn't sound. A lot of people are like, I want to try that. And then what you realize is you have to code and talk about what you're coding while you do it. With like, it's not every day. It's like 5,000 to 6,000 views. So you've got a total of like 6,000 people who are watching you and critiquing you in the comment section.
Oh yeah.
So while I'm doing it, and I'm like talking about all the things I'm doing, I've got people like, don't do that, or you're doing it wrong, or you're doing it wrong. So one of my mantras has become, and it's just, I guess, building a thick skin. One of my mantras is, don't tell me how to do what I'm doing. I know I'm doing it wrong, but at least I'm getting it done. And I think that that's a huge theme for, I guess, my career, which is, I'm not particularly smart. I think I'm kind of a moron. My wife will tell you that. That's a joke, honey. But I'm kind of not, I don't have the smartest or the best street smarts or common sense. But I guess the fortitude to get through all the failure is what has made me get where I'm at now. And I think a lot of my students see that. They get to watch me fail publicly live every single day. And that's in turn what sells the products and sells the games. So that transparency, it gives that credibility to the product. And that comes, again, back to what the future generations are going to want to see. And so transparency is the new marketing technique. And the problem with that is if people are truly transparent, they don't have much to offer. And so really it comes down to your offering has to be good. It has to be perfect, almost perfect, because you have to sell it in a transparent way.
And kind of countercultural to what most social media has been, right?
Correct.
Because you only see people
Correct.
post the fun and great stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So you're telling me,
highlights.
you only get the good stuff.
Yeah,
You
but-
don't get the pictures of the kids that you've done this where you're trying to get family pictures and it takes 45 minutes to get one of them to look the right way, right?
I know, but I was listening to I typed in Gen Z playlist on Spotify.
I bet that was entertaining.
I was like, what does the next generation want? Because I'm trying to find what the future generation, because the future generation is going to be such a digitally profitable generation. Everything's digital for them. Everything they purchase, a lot of stuff that they purchase is digital.
I can tell you as a dad of 4, I came home the other day and I looked down at my router for my Wi-Fi in-house. There was 24 instruments or whatever attached to my Wi-Fi. And there's only 6 of us in the house.
Yeah.
So,
basically that we're all being sucked into the matrix. Whether we like it or not, it's gonna happen. And so the reason I searched on Spotify a playlist is because I'm like, what are they listening to? What's the music sound like? And what I was captured by wasn't the music, but I was actually captured by the album artwork. Everything looks candid. Nothing's like posed.
Yeah.
It's all candid. It's all kind of grungy and dirty. It kind of has an old school like grungy 90s vibe.
Old Nirvana.
Yeah, it's like that old grungy, realistic, transparent look. And that's what they're looking for. And if you get on TikTok, I'm not a fan of TikTok, but I do put content on TikTok because I have to, because it's just what you do in the digital world. But TikTok is the same thing. It's transparency, being transparent. And I'm even so transparent that I'm sitting here telling your audience what my marketing tactics are to sell a product. Yeah. And I tell it to my audience. I'm like, I'm putting you guys into a sales funnel right now. I'm telling them this is what's happening if you click that link below. But they know that and they understand that. And I even teach them about sales funnels and how they relate to games. So
consistency with, I guess, the frequency of how much you post and when you post and do your live streams. Have you found that there's any sort of, silver lining on when do people actually, tune in the most?
Well, this is it's a great question, and I've been learning about it this past month actually, and I actually hired a guy to coach me on how to understand my audience. What I've learned is your audience isn't Instagram, your audience isn't YouTube, your audience is your audience. It's who you collected, and so you've got to. Well, first to answer your question is there's no set time. It's whatever your audience proves to be the best time.
Okay.
So you have to look at the analytics and the data. Mm-hmm. You guys look at finances and numbers in the stock market, and you're analyzing all that stuff. And I'll ask Rob all the time. I'll be like, should I get rid of this stock or should I pull out? And he's like, it's not that simple. Like we have to analyze every single one and the specifics, and you can't just predict it based on some static metric. It's all variable and it's dependent on the portfolio. But for me, it's the audience. Who is my audience? And I still have to dig into the data and look at who my audience is, and then find out the best time for that particular audience. And again, it's not like my audience is game developers. My audience is my audience. It's the 250-some thousand subscribers I have. That's my audience. So I have to figure out the best time for that specific audience.
Which is a big group of people.
Yeah,
it is a big group of people, but it's so cool because the reason these platforms are so powerful, almost scarily so, the reason they're so powerful is because they provide an audience, a very specific audience, to a company or a group or an individual like me. I have a very specific audience, and I have the power to say who that audience is. So you've really got to be thinking, who's ever listening to this podcast, if you want to build an audience, you need to be thinking right now who that audience is going to be. And you need to craft your content to gather that audience. If you're all about profitability, let's say your goal is profitability for 2021 or 2022, how do you get to that profitability, and what does the audience look like to deliver that profitability? Once you can figure out who that audience is, the age, gender, culture, all that stuff, once you figure out who that audience is, then you start crafting content to hit that specific audience. A big audience is not as valuable as a specific one that you want. I'd rather have 2,000 subscribers that are my clients, my students, as opposed to 100,000 that are just random people who watch TikTok all day.
They're just stalking you.
Yeah, because if profitability is your goal, then they're not valuable.
Sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be your goal.
So I'm sure you have a lot of loyal subscribers and audience that are watching you create these games, and then you turn around and sell these games. Mm-hmm. Does anyone ever message you or say, hey, I was able to win the game or beat this because I remember you creating it and I remember the ways around what you were creating in the game, because they're like watching you build it from the ground up?
No, because the last game that I launched was Neversong, which is on the Apple Arcade right now. We sold that to Apple. And what I did is for the last portion of the game, I didn't live stream the ending because that's major spoilers.
Yeah.
So my goal for my next game, which is called Father, and that game is about this dad whose daughter goes off to some creepy. She gets a full ride to an Ivy League school, but he's never heard of this college before, and so he has to go. She doesn't come home for Christmas break, and so he goes to this cultish college. It's kind of a horror game. He goes to this cultish college campus, and it's just zombies and like vampires and stuff, and he has to find his daughter. So she's in this creepy college. Anyway, so I'm live streaming the creation of this entire game. That's the goal. Yeah. Live stream the entire thing. So in this case, yeah, probably. People will probably figure out what the twist is, because I like to put twists in my games. I kind of want to be the M. Night Shyamalan of video games. I don't know if you've ever seen The Sixth Sense or...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember the twist ending.
He was like 5.
No.
No, you were probably
Yeah,
my
no, I
age.
watched it. It was it was a surprise ending because it's like he was dead the whole time.
Yeah.
So I always wonder what would it be like if people like M. Night Shyamalan live streamed filming, like it's kind of meta, but like filmed themselves directing, and what would happen at the twist ending. What I do, this is really fun, it's kind of like off topic, but what I like to do is get ideas from my audience and put them into the game.
So that was one of my questions is, do you come up with all of the angles and the content, or what do you, like, do you have a group of people that you just bounce ideas off of? And you're like, hey, what do you think about this?
The group of people is 5,000 people who show up during a live stream.
So you're just asking.
Yeah, and this is what's so great is I've always been like, how do I make a game that goes viral? How do I make a game that's awesome and that everybody loves? The best way to do it is to just have your audience make it.
That's a great point.
And that's the thing that Gen Z is going to figure out, is they're going to go, I'm not going to come up with my product. I'm just going to have my audience tell me what the product should be. And as long as I'm being true to myself and taking those ideas, I'm going to create an evergreen product. Product creation across the board, but especially digital, it needs to be created by your audience. So you need to find that audience. And you guys listen to your clients. It's the same thing. If you can listen to 20 clients, that's great. But if you can listen to 200,000 clients, you're going to create a rock solid product. That's my theory, at least. So that's what I'm doing with my next game, is live stream the whole thing, take their ideas, and hopefully they'll buy it. And then more people will buy it because they bought it. Does that make sense?
And they can say, hey, I helped create this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and hopefully I won't get sued, but
You get a little disclaimer in the bottom.
yeah. If you put an idea in the chat box,
I'm
it's
keeping
mine
it.
for free.
I own it. My channel.
So I know you kind of talked about this where you were building the games and you were live streaming. You were always kind of doing that, but you hinted at your students. Kind of tell how with the pandemic, the content you saw people wanting and how you kind of shift the model a little bit, a little over a year ago.
Yeah, the pandemic, I mean, it's an unfortunate truth that digital companies and especially digital education platforms, they profited from it. I mean, and the tech companies and Amazon, they all blew up in a good way for them. And that's just what happened, is everybody was at home, so they just started consuming content. YouTube viewership was up like crazy. And the pandemic, I mean, what it informed me of, and I think it informed the audience, or I guess anybody who's thinking about college in that age group, I think the pandemic said, well, hang on, do I want to go to college this year? I'm kind of nervous, I don't want to get sick. So what it did is people started experimenting. First off, everyone experimented with remote working. I'm sure you guys did as well. Everybody worked remote.
Sure.
But also the education turning into a remote platform as well. I think it made people realize I can get all this knowledge, just take a course online. And so that's one of the reasons why I started working on the course. It wasn't because of the pandemic, but I was encouraged by the remote working atmosphere and also the remote learning atmosphere that I was watching on the news. I was like, well, it seems like people are hungry for this kind of stuff. So I think video lectures for me personally, and that's what I offer my students. In addition to video games, I offer them, just a 30-plus hour online course where I just talk to a camera. That kind of content for me personally is the best way for me to learn, because I can rewind, I can pause it, write down notes, and that kind of, I have no idea why we're not doing that, like, as a cheaper alternative to college. And I guess we are now. Online learning is becoming very popular. But yeah, like my platform, the program that I offer, which is called Full-Time Game Dev, it was propelled by the pandemic, unfortunately. I mean, it's sad to say it, but it's true. It's what happened. So, yeah.
But at the same time, people were looking for that.
They were.
Yeah.
So you're offering something that people need.
Yeah.
But it always feels sour thinking about it. Like the pandemic made digital products more valuable. You know?
I don't think it should feel sour. I think it's more opportunistic, right? So you see a need, you feel a need, and you were already doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So it just became maybe I should focus this way.
Yeah.
To give them what they're asking for.
Right. I mean that's what people are asking for, and
that's smart business.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that for careers that aren't necessarily like engineering or becoming a doctor or anything like that, as a CPA, that kind of thing. Other jobs, there's ways to get education outside of getting a $40,000 loan from a college. And I think people are realizing that now, and they find programs like mine that are like $400, $500, and they're like, I would rather risk that than 40 grand and commit to these student loans.
And I can do it on my own time.
Exactly.
And work or do whatever.
Exactly.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, so when you, all right, so the YouTube space, right? I know my two boys love watching random stuff.
Oh, they do?
I mean, they'll watch
Video
kids
game stuff?
run around playing
Yeah.
Nerf guns or whatever. Like, I mean, it just
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Oh, yeah.
So what's one of the most surprising things you have found, whether it be a good surprise or a bad surprise, with your experience of that YouTube world?
The sad, maybe it's not a sad thing, maybe it's a good thing. People that's where their friends are, like, and they don't even meet their friends. It's like, no, my friends are all digital. Like, it's just text. I think that's the most surprising thing. Like, I have loyal people who show up every day, and that's their friend.
The
friend
same
group.
ones.
Yeah, and I recognize I don't know their names, but I know like their screen name. So like Nerf Boy 3000 or whatever, he shows up. I'm just making up a name, but he'll show up every day, and he's got his little friend group. So I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. In a way, I'm like, hey, if that's how you want to socialize, that's great. It's better than not having friends. But there's sort of a moral question, which is like, do we need to be face-to-face to have true friendship? I think we do, personally. But people show up all the time, and that's their friend group. And I don't see this going away, this digital matrix. I was talking to my wife about it. I was like, we're already in the matrix, because I'm staring at my phone half the day.
Yeah.
Well, when I'm at, like, I put my kids to bed and I'm like back on my phone, and I was just looking at my computer for 8 hours. If that's not the matrix, I don't know what is. I'm literally in this digital. It's a flat screen, but I'm in it, and I'm like, this is also my business model. So it just makes you wonder, like, how does this go away? First off, it's profitable for companies to pursue the digital world. It's very profitable because the cost is very low. To create a digital product, I mean, if you can create, once you're done with the hard costs of creating a digital product, what you have available is basically 98% return on your investment. You sell a product and it costs you nothing. Maybe it costs you some ad spend, maybe the server space to keep it up online. But it's such a cheap product to sell for you. How does that go away? It's not going to go away. So the companies that choose to embrace this, making digital products and selling them via social media platforms, they're going to succeed. And the companies that don't will slowly start to, I guess, shrivel on the vine.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things that I've noticed, thinking back to my childhood, teenage years, when video games were starting to become, more mainstream, like first PlayStation, those type of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You used to be able to just buy the disc, buy the game, you're done.
Yeah.
Play it for as long as you want.
Yeah.
Now, with the Xbox Online, all these things, you have to have some sort of a online presence or a subscription service to play the video game. Like, you can go buy it, but you can only play it for, the limited version.
Right.
So it's really interesting where companies have shifted to create more of a revenue stream long term.
Yes, exactly. The subscription model is here to stay for at least the next decade. One of the reasons I think it's profitable is because, and I don't do one of these for my students because of what I'm about to say, which is, I mean, you guys probably know this. You've probably got a couple subscriptions you forgot about.
Oh,
and they're just
I'm sure
pulling money out of your account.
I'm sure we do.
And so in a way, we've turned into, like, what's the word, serfs. It's like you're paying all of these rental fees to all these lords, and you forget that you're even doing it. And I think that's it's very profitable for these businesses to do that.
So what about the other phenomena with kids, and I say they're kids, they're not.
Yeah.
But I just reference it because of the age of my kids, is how much money is spent on in-game purchases.
Oh, my word.
Can you talk to that at all?
Well, I don't do that for my games, partly because I am kind of morally opposed to it, to be honest.
It's amazing, the numbers.
It's crazy. But I mean, EA Games got in big trouble about this. EA Games, they make all like the AAA shoot 'em up games and the sports games. They had stuff called it was called loot crates, and they're these beautiful crates that show up after a match. They're just 3D. They're not real, but they're so shiny and they look so pretty. And it's like you can buy them. But the thing, what EA got in trouble for is they turned it into a lottery where it's like if you buy it, you spend $1 or something. I don't even know what the price was. Maybe you'll get something like a new outfit for your character, but maybe you won't. So all of a sudden, EA was a casino for kids.
I had not heard this one.
So they got in big trouble for that.
But I see my kids play video games, and they're always wanting to buy things in a game, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And they'll want to spend all of their money they get for birthdays. Can I go buy this in the game?
Yeah.
You can't get it out of the game.
I know, but that's the thing is, it's a philosophical question, which is, what is the difference between a physical item and a digital item to a younger person? Well, a digital item is quicker, it's faster, it knows them better because behind the scenes there's AI that knows exactly what they want.
Oh, no doubt.
So I don't see, unless there's like some weird laws that come out, there's no way to stop this train. It's going fast. And I've been asking myself this: do I want to participate in this? Because I know how to. I know I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a digital entrepreneur. I know how to participate in this, but do I want to?
Yeah.
I don't think I do. So I like selling education products. I like selling video games that are like classic games. Maybe I'll bite my tongue here, but I don't think I'm going to do these whole loot crates and digital in-game digital.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that. So.
So we know you're working on a game now. Without sharing the details of it or a spoiler, when do you think it will come out or be finished with the game you're working on right now?
I think, well, to answer your question, short answer is like hopefully next year. But my primary goal with the game is not to release a game. I mean, I'm going to release a game, but the goal is actually the performance side of it, which and it's such a weird thing because I thought that building a product is about getting the product done and putting it onto the shelves. But for me, it's like no. Building the product is actually what's profitable right now, because you're building an audience, and that audience will eventually convert and buy the product. But that audience is also saying, hey, you know what? Like 1% of that audience says, I want to learn how to make games too. And so you're selling a product, an online course, while you spend as long as you want making a game. You could just spend years making this game, and it's just a billboard. That's all it is. And like pop musicians are doing this right now. I don't know, it wasn't Justin Bieber, but there's a pop musician right now of that caliber. And if you look at his descriptions in the YouTube videos, he's selling training too. They're all selling training. And they're realizing they can sell these high-value training courses. But their artwork is just a billboard for this, buried in the description. And if they can get 1% of their audience to click that and buy, it's a profitable business model.
So you've shifted, when you were working your day job and then doing the games outside of work hours, you were probably trying to get the product done as quick as possible to release it.
Yeah,
and now
gotta make some money. Yeah.
Now it's changed.
And now you're like, I'm going to
string
this out.
I'll go so far as to say is, and I'm not going to do this, but it's more profitable to draw it out.
Yeah.
And just like spend years just making one game. Content is your best friend right now. So the more content you can come up with, especially, see, a lot of YouTubers, the ones that are popular, they found that gold mine of content. Especially like political commentators, they've got a gold mine of content because every day they've got a new post from Fox News or CNN that they can rant about.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so wealthy. They've got a gold mine of content. And so a lot of times YouTubers think, well, I need to just find that one viral video that I can make. And it's like, that's not enough. You've got to have basically infinite content. And that's why I think the podcast that you guys are doing right now is really great, because you can meet all these different kinds of entrepreneurs and tell their story. And that to me is a gold mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've got to get on YouTube today. I'm assuming you haven't done it yet.
I've got a couple videos to do today. Yeah.
So If Coleman, do you have anything else, man, from a
No.
question perspective? All right. So, a couple things, man. Everybody that we have interviewed gets 2 questions. All right. I'm assuming you may already know these. If you don't,
I don't.
that's okay.
This is
I'm
great.
a little
Yeah.
nervous now.
So, if you could buy anything in the world, regardless of how much it cost, what would it be?
It sounds lame, but I just want a Gladiator Rubicon, a Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. And it's not like, I guess I should have chose like a mansion, right?
Yeah.
I just want that Rubicon
Listen,
so bad.
I think I know where you're going with this. Jeep, if you're listening, right? Some sponsorships in play.
Yeah, that's right.
I know where you're going.
That's right.
Okay.
I thought I wanted a Ford Bronco, but
So
then
I guess you go get both of them in here.
but then I realized they're never going to launch the Ford Bronco.
Yeah, they have the Sport, but it's not the same.
No, it's not
Yeah.
the same at all. But I want the Jeep
Okay.
Gladiator Rubicon with 37-inch tires.
He's getting specific, Jeep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. And last 2 things you spent money on.
Diapers.
Mm-hmm.
Right
there with
and I'm getting some land.
All right.
So
Nice.
Buying some dirt.
yeah, buying some dirt.
Perfect. Okay. So, Thomas, thank you, man, for joining
Yeah.
us. Guys, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions on topics that you'd like for us to cover, you can find us at our website at fostervictorwa.com. You can find us on Instagram at Foster Victor Wealth Advisors. Thomas, tell everybody how they can contact you or find you.
It could just Google search Thomas Brush, and the YouTube link should show up right away. Just click YouTube, and that's where I'm at most of my day.
There you go.
All right.
Man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
next time.
All right.
Information contained in this podcast was intended for general use, not to be used as specific advice. For content tailored to your personal situation, please contact one of our wealth coaches.